So anyway, I'm just kind of going through here and doing a little bit of a quick sketch. But again, I want to go back to this idea, or that I introduced about art like a scientist. Now, this painting, I have to say, I'm not. You're gonna kind of go on this. It's a journey painting. It's not a destination painting. It's going to, in my opinion, it's not a great painting, but I'm totally okay with that. And the reason why is, again, I approach art like a scientist, and so there's a lot of experimentation that goes on, and there's a lot of trial and error, and I'm okay to fail. So one of the things, is, as far as my art goes, I love painting cityscapes. I love painting buildings and structures. But I have a whole course that I just finished painting cityscapes and structures and all of that, and so I just needed to kind of do something a little different, just to kind of broaden what I've done. And so that's one of the reasons why I'm doing this here. And the other thing I'd like to mention is that uh, every artist has their strengths, right? And often when we do kind of a demonstration like this, we tend to do something maybe that we're very strong at, very capable of doing. We can kind of almost do it in our sleep, maybe something we're known for, and that's great. I love that. But this is not that demo. So, and the reason for that is I kind of want to show the struggle of what it is to learn and grow as an artist, and kind of the way I approach things. Now, if you've heard about the talk I gave, and there's a DVD that came out maybe 5 or 6 years ago where I talked about the master's mind, and I talked about the neuroscience behind how the mind learns, and the physical changes that take place, the neural synapses, and how your mind changes and rewires itself based on how you add a certain stimulus, uh, or what sort of things you do to your body, or expose it to. And so, painting is no different from any other thing, whether it's violin or it's mathematics. It's going to respond to a stimulus, something that we repeatedly do. It will rewire itself in order to adapt to that thing. So, one of the things that's interesting about um, our bodies is that we have a thing called homeostasis. And that is one of the reasons why it's very hard to lose weight. Homeostasis is the body wants to stay in kind of where it's at. And, to lose weight or to do any other thing, you have to kind of stress the body out a little bit. You have to change the habits. And what your body is going to do is going to scream at you and say, no, 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 don't don't deny me this thing. This is what I'm used to. We're very adaptable. It's the reason why humans can live on pretty much any continent on the planet, is because of our adaptability. Whereas the rest of the animals in the animal kingdom can't necessarily do that. Some can, like a raccoon or coyotes are extremely adaptable, but many animals need to have certain conditions. But humans we're unique in that way. We're just very adaptable. Um, but at the same time, we do have this thing, homeostasis, that all living things have, and that is we want to stay in the same spot that we're at. And part of this discussion is based on a lot of workshops that I've taught, and what I am is I'm a careful observer of human nature. And so what happens in these workshops is I'll give a dump of information, right? Do a demonstration, and then I turn people off to go and paint, and a lot of them will kind of just do what they've always been doing, right? Maybe ignore everything I said and just go off and do their own thing. And some of them will try kind of what I suggest, but then halfway through the painting, they get frustrated, abandon it, and then move back to where they were before we met. And why is that? So I've thought a lot about that, done a lot of research in medical journals, things like that. And there's some great research out of Florida State University from a guy named Anders Ericsson, and he is the world authority on mastery research. So, how do you master things? And one of the things he talked about is this idea of homeostasis. And that is that the body doesn't like to be stressed out, but it can be stressed out for short periods of time. That's why we can do things like exercise for maybe an hour or a couple hours. Now, if I did exercise straight for a couple of hours, I would injure something because I'm not, an athlete by any means. I can go and, I use the exercise bike for a half hour a day. And that seems to at least keep the lights on. And, with the, what happens is that the body gets stressed. And even if you're like lifting weights, the muscles break down and they have to rebuild themselves. And that happens too also with our minds. We can stress it out by working on some difficult problems. As a kid, I just remember the strain of trying to learn new concepts. And, it seemed like a strain then, but now as I get older, I'm in my 40s, I find that the strain is just much greater when I'm trying to learn something. So that process does slow down a little bit when we get older, but it never goes away. We still can, because of this idea of neuroplasticity, the ability of the mind to change when we take it out of homeostasis, stress it in a way, basically we're learning something new, or we're doing something physical, and usually it's a combination of both to our body. We can do that for a couple hours a day, and then the body kind of has to go into a rest period, and then we have to do it again, and we have to do this repeatedly until the mind forms the new pathways. And it just takes time for these things to form, because certain neurons have to fire in your mind, and when they fire, and the more that we fire them, the more myelin, which is built around the nerve fiber, it just like a fiber optic cable, there's insulation they put around it so that the electrical impulse travels faster. And so that's what we're doing as we're stimulating ourselves in a repeated way, is we are actually changing the physical nature of our brains. And that allows us to do things much faster. So the speed of those neurons firing, it increases. And that's why, for instance, I remember in art school, I used to think a lot about color, and I really would worry about that. So is that, what is this color? What is that color? How do I mix it? At this point, I don't even think about it much. I can talk about it, but I don't think about it much. And the reason why I don't think about it is because I've automated it. It's just in my head, and I can think about something else. And usually, I'm kind of guilty here. I don't know if any of you guys do this, but I listen to all kinds of books and things while I'm painting, and because I like to have something to think about. Because if I do a crappy painting, at least I've learned something about the world, right? And so, anyway, what I'm trying to do with, or the kind of the point I'm trying to get across is that we need to make sure that we are putting ourselves through those periods of stressing ourselves. Because here in that instance of color, I've got it automated. Well, I need to do something to actually get myself stressed out a little bit. So maybe instead of having all my primaries, maybe I do something like go to what Steve's done. Steve's has his 3 colors, right? And just give myself 3 colors, and then it makes me have to kind of readjust and try and figure it out and pay attention again. Or maybe I load my palette with a ton of yellows and only have, split complements, like a violet and a blue green instead of a pure blue. So there's little experiments that we can do that can actually cause our mind to get out of its comfort zone and start to learn something new. Because it's really easy to fall into the trap of this is my comfort zone. This is what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to paint. And I think when we're learning, we can fall into that trap. We can really fall into the, well, I'm going to try his way. but you're going to find that that way is going to feel very foreign to you. And since it feels so foreign, you're going to say, well, I guess I'm not meant to be, you know, I'm not meant to do this. And then you kind of just go back to what you've always been doing.